also the culprit.
Welcome to Wales World. I'm your host for the next hour or two. My name is Andy Whale, current drummer of Memoriam and Darkened, and of course ex-drummer of Bathory. Hi there, this is Andy Whale. You're listening to Metal Messiah Radio. Now, I've had an idea for quite a while to record a show basically just about the years that influenced me as a drummer, as a person, the music, the bands, just things that happened in them times. So sit tight and get ready to hear some stories about 84 to 86. This show is called Soaped, Stamps and Scrumpy. Up until this time I was more into bands like Crash, anarcho-punk stuff, Discharge, all that old punk stuff. And then suddenly just got absolutely blown away by different music, like stuff coming in from America. There was a lot of the American punk stuff coming through, like Siege, that kind of thing, Repulsion even. And then more mainstream stuff, I suppose, now mainstream stuff, Slayer, Metallica, all those kind of bands. And of course, everything you got to listen to always got to you first on tape. It's like you go to a show, somebody would have you listen to this band, someone would come around your house with a tape, and you'd always get stuff months before it was released. I remember getting the first Slayer album, one of the Slayer albums, about a month before it was released, and it's absolutely brilliant, and I still went out and bought it because I loved it so much. But that's where tape trading and fanzines came in. It was our internet in a way. Now I don't want to just talk about music, I want to play some of it. That's what it's all about really, isn't it? So anyway, I'm going to get straight in there. This is a band called Siege, track called Conform. Absolutely blew me away back in the day. Just listen to it, it's brilliant. like I was saying, this show's called Soap Stamps and Scrumpy. Obviously the soap stamps, all the mailing thing, what everybody used to do basically. Everybody would have sort of like a padded envelope, a jiffy bag, whatever they call them. And you'd all have your set of stamps. Some people, I can't remember what people actually did. Mine, just to make sure they never got damaged, I used to stick the tape, the stamps on, then I would stick sellotape on it, clean sellotape. And then what you would do is put soap on it, which basically, when you got the envelope back, you could just wipe them off, any kind of stamp, like the franking thing off, and then use it again. And to be honest, for ages and ages and ages, that worked. Everybody did that. But then I think after a while, the post office sort of like sussed it a little bit, so they sort of like started putting, like you've got to pay in £1 or whatever, that kind of thing. So, but it still went on for quite a while. The second part of the show, in a way, is Scrumpy, which epitomises the mermaid for me. I mean, I used to spend my whole life at that place. Any shows that were there, I was there. It was absolutely brilliant time. 84 to 86, the amount of bands I saw there, absolutely brilliant. Some bands for the first time. Napalm, always on. They were sort of like everybody's support band at the time. One of my favourite shows I saw there was the first Sacrilege show, or one of their first shows. Absolutely brilliant. Even down to I think it was Rat and Kev and a couple of the other guys from the Rookers when they did Arbitrator, but that was a little bit closer to 85, 86, I think. No, it would have been 86, maybe a little bit later than that. And obviously all the bands that you want to see, Antisect, Amoebics, absolutely brilliant. Where the Scrumpy comes in, they had behind the bar, they had this massive barrel of the worst Scrumpy you could imagine, bits in it, 50p a pint. The only way it was palatable was you used to have a splash of blackcurrant in it, and after about 4 or 5 pints of that, you were absolutely just incapable of doing anything. Some nights I don't know how I got home, but it was just a brilliant time. The people there were so many people from bands. Like I say, you had all the Verukers, the guys from Carcass were there, obviously later in years, like from Napalm, that kind of thing, Electro Hippies. But there was just such a wide choice of bands that played there, really. Like American bands were over, DRI, like I say, Napalm, all that kind of stuff. It was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to play another song now. It's by a band called the English Dogs. They were a punk band and they still are a punk band, but in 1985 they released this album, Forward Into Battle. Basic cross between metal and punk, and this track is The Ultimate Sacrifice. Absolutely brilliant track. Speak to you in a bit. like I say, I'm talking about 84 to 86. Some of the shows that I saw in them days, not in Birmingham obviously, but I think late 84 I saw Metallica down at the Lyceum. Absolutely brilliant show, you know, sort of like going down there, big event to see, big band. It was really, really good. 85 I think I saw Slayer at the Marquee. That was an amazing show as well. I remember even though I had a ticket, me and a few friends, Carl even, sort of like went down there, you know, usual, get the National Express down there. We all had tickets, but I just seem to remember that it was they opened the doors and it was just mayhem. They just let anybody in, and I think we just literally got in there. I think they had a band supporting them called Atomcraft as well, which I seem to remember about halfway through their set. Obviously, must have been a massive thing for them back then. And they had an album coming out as well, I seem to remember. And halfway through, I think the bass amp packed in, and obviously they couldn't get a new one, I suppose, so they weren't going to borrow them their kit, stuff. And the bass player just went absolutely bonkers and started smashing his bass up. And I think on that, I actually went out and bought the album. It's not a very good album, I don't think so. But and then I think 86 was one absolutely great show, which involved English Dogs as well. I think it was the Electric Ballroom. It was English Dogs, Voivod and Possessed, which there again, remember going down with a lot of friends, sort of getting really drunk, having a really good time, stopping over, some family friends or something. I can't remember whose it was, but that's what it was really. It was just such an interesting time, and like I say, some of the bands you got to see, I mean, a lot of them are still going now. It was such a good time. Two bands at the time which really, really made, me want to play the music that I do now. I keep saying that, but that would have been Venom and Bathory. Venom were just absolutely brilliant live. I mean, I remember the first time we went to see them, there was this massive just punk rockers with Mohicans, rockers. It was just such a mix of people, that I'd never really seen before. Because I mean, Birmingham in a way was always very much, you kept to yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, the punks were punks, skinheads were skinheads, and rockers were rockers. But Venom just seemed to bring everybody together. And even though, I suppose now looking back on them, they were sort of like quite a basic band in a way, but they were just brilliant at what they did. The other band was absolutely one of my favourite bands of all time, Bathory. Absolutely brilliant. And you know what? For the hell of it, I'm just going to play a Bathory song because I love it. This is from the Return album, and it's Possessed. So just listen to this. It is brilliant.
When
as we go into 86, really, that's when, although I'd been in punk bands for quite a few years before this, it's when I got the chance to sort of like join Bolt Thrower, you know, to sort of like, as always, like I've said before, all of, you know, new people in the, you know, Birmingham, Coventry, Leamington, all around the Midlands. I was told, you know, someone was looking for a band. I got in touch with them, Baz and Gav, obviously, and went over there it was in Leamington, actually, place where the Verucas lived. Gav lived there as well. They had a basement, instruments in there, as you can imagine, egg boxes on the wall to try and stop the noise. I think the next door neighbours absolutely hated them, but it was just really, really good fun. And obviously, as time went on, you know, we rehearsed, went out, drank a lot, had a lot of fun. You know, like I say, also at that time as well, around that sort of time, myself and Barney from Napalm ENT, and Greg and Steve from Cerebral Fix, we did Colostomy, which I think lasted about 2 months or something like that. Did one infamous show at the Kaleidoscope, usual Daz Russell thing, one of the bands didn't turn up, so we just turned around and said, you know, we'll play, and sort of like, yeah, I seem to remember it being really good. People liked it, and supposedly some of the tracks ended up on a Russian flexi disc, some fanzine from Russia. I don't think that ever happened though. But I mean, that was, you know, it was all the start of grindcore. Really, really good times. Bands were great, and it was just a great time. I mean, you know, so, but I am going to finish this section of it off, 86, with probably my favourite album from around this time, and that would be The Accused and Martha Splatterhead. Absolutely brilliant album. I know it. Can you say what is it? Is it, you know? But I don't care. It's just a brilliant album. Anyway, like I say, it's just me dipping in and out of my memories of, you know, those 10 years, 84 to 94. I've probably missed a lot out. I've missed a lot of bands out, Onslaught, all that kind of stuff. But all I'm doing, like I say, is just dipping in, dipping out, and just telling you, you know, the way I saw saw those years. And thanks to all the guys at Metal Messiah Radio for letting me do it. And I will be back for the next instalment, which will be 87 to 88, and it is called The Radio's Calling. See you soon, take care.
Be
Hi there, this is Metal Messiah Radio, it's Andy Whale. This is the second section of my show. This section's 87 to 88 and I've named it The Radio's Calling. 87, what a brilliant year for demos, that kind of thing. Some of the bands that released I heard demos this time, around this time. You've got to be talking Autopsy, Nihilist, Immolation, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely brilliant. But straight away, I'm going to go into one album that I absolutely thought was brilliant. Album cover's brilliant. Now, 1987, for me personally, well, that would have just been rehearsing with Bolt Thrower. As I said earlier, we used to practice over in Leamington Spa. I think this sort of time we might have moved to Kong Studios, which was owned by Gary Maloney of Discharge, which was, for me, as a massive Discharge fan, sort of like, was absolutely brilliant, because I never, I always watched Discharge. I always saw him as a drummer on the stage, and he was a great influence and inspiration to me. So meeting him as a friend, as always, getting to know people that you thought as sort of like, sort of like in bands. It was great. I think other than that, I think it was just a case of the band recording a couple of demos, really. I mean, we used to do that at Rich Bitch, the first two demos, In Battle and Concession of Pain. Now around 87, I remember, because I'd always listen to John Peel. There was two shows that we used to listen to in our household, mainly John Peel. We'd listen to it for absolutely years. Always played a lot of old punk stuff, alternative stuff as well, Killing Joke. It's absolutely brilliant. You could guarantee if you listen to it, there'd always be something worthwhile watching. Around 87 though, I seem to remember him picking up on a lot of music that I was listening to, really. I think the first first session, should I say, not demo, he played was Electro Hippies, I think. And then the next one I think I heard was ENT, which was absolutely brilliant. Completely, listening to it on the radio, it was just something different at the time. Bands like that never got on the radio. They never got in magazines. Fanzines, yeah, not magazine, yeah, mainstream stuff, and definitely not Radio 1. And like I say, at that time, I think we sort of like recorded the Concession of Pain demo, which was our second demo. And I seem to remember sending them, not me personally, but as a band, we sent them off to both John Peel and Tommy Vance, because obviously Tommy Vance was playing, early Metallica, Slayer, Venom at the time. And I seem to remember getting a letter back from Tommy Vance, sort of like saying, yeah, thanks lads, but it's not really what we play. We just forgot about it. And sometime late 87, John Walters, who was John Peel's sort of like assistant sort of thing, he phoned me up and sort of like said John had really enjoyed the demo, and did we want to go and record a session for him? And so of course sort of like turned around and said yeah. And I think it was arranged for late 87. But do you know what? I'm going to go backtrack a little bit, and I'm going to play a track from Extreme Noise Terror, and I'm going to go for In It For Life, because it's just short, and it just blew me away the first time, we're listening to this on national radio. Now, before I go into 88, one show that I went to that was absolutely brilliant, one of my favourite bands, I think it was about October 87 or something, at the Powerhouse. I think it was Celtic Frost and Creator. Absolutely brilliant, Celtic Frost at their best. absolutely brilliant show. I remember going to it and just being absolute awe. Brilliant. I mean, other bands that I was completely, really, Peel session wise, that I was really into as well was, I think it was 87 or was it 88? A band called Gore. Brilliant band. They seem to be around for years, but never seem to hit that sort of, get any kind of fame or get anywhere. But they did a session for John Peel. I think one of the tracks was Mean Man's Dream or something. But if there's one band you want to go onto YouTube, go and find Gore and do the 1987 Peel session. It is 20 minutes of brilliance, and the great thing about it is there's absolutely no singer in the band as well. It's just music, it's heavy, it's brilliant. I'd love to play it, but most of their tracks are about 10 minutes. Anyway, I'm going to take a break now anyway, and then I will be back with 88. Speak to you in a minute. Now, 1988, what can I say? I think it was the 3rd of January. At first Peel session was played, and it just changed the band's life completely. I mean, with 4 tracks. Next thing is, days later, people, are sort of like letters coming through the door, interest from the, about the band. Absolutely brilliant. And then literally within a week, Vinyl Solution got in touch with us, asked us if we fancied recording an album, which at the end of the day, we were young, we were naive, and we just said yes. And I think about a couple of days later, I think me and Gav might have gone down there, and sort of like they said to us, what do you want to do? And we sort of like said, yeah, well, we'll do the album in 7 days or something like that, and that was it. I mean, but 1988 was an absolutely brilliant year. I mean, obviously Alan decided to leave the band, and well, as everybody knows, good old friend of mine used to drive the band. I mean, in fact, Carl drove us down to the first Peel session, drove Doom down to their first Peel session as well, and in them days he wanted to give the vocals a go, and he'd never done it before, and as like I say, that's the way it was in them days. He was a friend of the band, so we just gave him a go, and history obviously we were right. We'll say that we were right, but do you know what? I'm going to play another song here, and it's Minor Threat and In My Eyes. This is just to show all the different kind of music that I was listening to at the time. for this show, I've sort of like been sort of looking into shows that are around them sort of days, and that sort of time, and it was amazing really, because although nowadays you'll have sort of like death metal festivals, you have grindcore, death, all this kind of thing. In them days, there was just loads of different bands all just thrown together. People weren't, you didn't have a category. It was, you weren't grindcore bands, you weren't a death metal band. You were just a band that everybody liked, and you'd have sort of like on any kind of festival, you'd have sort of a band like Sore Throat, you'd have Bolt Thrower, you'd have Deviated Instinct, Doctor and the Crippins, who were a great band. They used to have Exploding Cabbages on all their shows, which are brilliant. Bands like the Stupids, Bomb Disneyland, even very early Paradise Lost, I think, or maybe were they a little bit later. Now, the UK scene at the time, absolutely brilliant. I mean, you had basically in Birmingham, you had venues like the Mermaid, the Kaleidoscope, the Barrel Organ, all places that everybody played. In Liverpool, you had the Planet X. Over in Ipswich, I think it was something like the Caribbean Centre or something. Places like the George Roby that we used to play. Graham the Fulham Greyhound as well, not the Graham Fulham, the Fulham Greyhound, and down in London, and just places like that, and literally there was bands like Hell Bastard, Us, Carcass, all those kinds of bands. Cerebral Fix, local band called Prolapse as well, which were great guys. I remember going on tour. I think we did a tour after the album was released. I think it was Prolapse at one of the shows, and then it was Cerebral Fix and obviously Bolt Thrower. I think we went round to big minibus. Just used to rock up at shows, sort of like far too much to drink. Try and get our head down at somebody's house. And if we couldn't, I remember one time we ended up having to sleep in the actual minibus itself. I can remember Hadrian, who was the driver, and he was the drummer in Cerebral Fix at the time. I think it was Carl as well at this time. Sleeping on top of the actual the minibus, because obviously there wasn't any room. So, but it was just that kind of thing. It was just mental, really. But it was all good fun. But yeah, I mean, that was what it was like playing them days. You used to, jump in the back of a van, sit on your equipment, and just go there, play, and then come home. Get home 2-3 o'clock in the morning. It was just fun. Anyway, this is Metal Messiah Radio, and like I say, it's Andy Whale. I'm going to speak to you in a minute anyway. Take care. Bye bye.